Hello, Algebra 1, blue day, it's Friday. We're going to look at solving quadratics by factoring today, but before we do that, I want to hit a quick refresher on what we did last time in class. We solved quadratics by graphing. So pretty simple. We saw that our first step here was to set the quadratic equation equal to 0. So we have to have the quadratic in standard form, which we see there in green on the slide. Here's an example of a quadratic, but it's not set equal to 0. It's set equal to 11x plus 5. So you can see there in a couple steps, they moved the 11x to the left side of the equation by subtracting it. They did the opposite operation. And the plus 5, they did the opposite or inverse operation and subtracted to its like term. They lined up the like terms on the left side, and when they did that, it's where they got the quadratic x squared minus 9x plus 20, and now the quadratic is set equal to 0, and we're ready to put it into our graphing calculator. Step 2, this is where we plugged it into our y equals screen. The equation on the left side was x squared minus 9x plus 20, and we set the quadratic equal to 0, so we plugged that into our y2. The last step we did was simply graph it, and we see the graph on the left side here. We see that the quadratic or parabola crosses the x-axis at two different places here. So that tells us we have two solutions. We also know they could use the terminology zeros, intercepts, x-intercepts, or roots. All those vocabulary words mean the exact same thing. So the calculator steps to find those were second trace 5 and hit enter 3 times. You have to repeat that process then to go find the second solution. That was solving quadratics by graphing. Today we're going to look at solving quadratics by factoring. Make sure before you get into the activity with your partner today that these lesson videos, you scan these QR codes and you do these 4 examples before you get started to refresh your memory on how we factor. If you're going to solve by factoring, you first need to know how to factor using that box method that we looked at this year. So here's the example. This is on the back of your lesson video notes. If you'll work this example with me, we're going to find the roots of 3x squared minus 6x plus 10 equal to 5x. We're going to solve this quadratic and find the roots or solutions by factoring. Now once again, we see that step 1 is to simply get it. You must start in standard form. So if we're looking at our original equation up here, it's not set equal to 0. Right now it's set equal to 5x. So what we need to do is get it equal to 0. So to do that, I know I can simply subtract this 5x from both sides of the equation. So we're left with the 3x squared. Now we have a negative 6x minus 5x. Negative 6x minus 5x, negative 6 minus 5 gives me a negative 11x. Now I still have the plus 10. I'm just going to bring it down. And on the right side of the equal sign, you have 5x minus 5x. Well, 5x minus 5x is just 0, which is what we wanted. So the quadratic is in standard form, and it's set equal to 0. Step 2 is to draw the box. And we put the first term in the first box, so we put 3x squared. We put the last term in the last box. The last term is the plus 10. And now we're going to do a few calculator steps to figure out what goes in those other 2 boxes. We multiply the first term times the last. So if we multiply first times last, we get 30. So in our y1 screen, we're going to type in 30 divided by x. And then in y2, we're going to type in 30 divided by x plus x. So I'm going to give you a second. If you need to pause the video, do that and go ahead and plug that into your y equals screen. Once you have it plugged in, you're going to go to your table. Remember, we hit second graph. And in our table, we're looking for that last column to be our middle term, which our middle term here is -11. So you should find the combination, the two numbers, is -5 and -6. So those are the factors that we put into the diagonal boxes. Those are our x terms. So I'm going to write -6x here and -5x. Now remember, when we factor, we're just going to find what multiplies to get those four boxes. So we start by finding the GCF, the greatest common factor of our top row. So our top row are these two terms here, the 3x squared and the -6x. So I'm trying to think of what the largest number to go into 3 and -6. And I know that the greatest common factor would be 3. Oops, I did not mean to do that. Let me erase that. Add the highlighter. 3. And an x squared and x, the greatest common factor, I can pull out an x from both of those terms. So 3x times x gives me 3x squared. 3x times -2 gives me the -6x. And then x times -5. Okay, so we found the outsides. We found the factors 3x minus 5 times x minus 2. Now we already set this quadratic equal to 0, so the last step to find our two roots or solutions is to set each factor equal to 0. So I'm going to write 3x minus 5 equal to 0 and x minus 2. Once you have set each factor equal to 0, simple right here, all you do is solve each equation for x. So to solve this first equation, I'm going to two-step equation. I would add 5 to both sides to get 3x equals 5. And then divide both sides by 3. So I get x equals 5/3. The second equation, I would simply add 2 to both sides. And I would get x equals 2. So my two solutions, this parabola crosses the x-axis twice, has two roots or solutions. It's x equals 5/3, or your calculator may give you a decimal there as 1.6 repeating, and x equals +2. And that's it. That's how we solve a quadratic by factoring. All right, work hard with your partners today. Your partner will do one side, the odds, the other one will do the evens. Work as a team. And have a great weekend. We'll see you. Coach Loper out.